I'm Caden, here with my brother, Cal, and you're watching Eating W's.
Eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 3 predictions. But before we jump into those predictions, we are going to give you a quick update on our head-to-head pick'em score. Now, Callan had a little bit of a comeback week, just a little bit though, picking up 8 points compared to my only 6 points, giving us a total of me with 18 and Callan with 12. So he cuts his deficit from 8 to 6. So, a little bit of an improvement each week is all you really need.
Just gotta keep it close.
Exactly, that's all you gotta do. So now we will jump into our predictions for Week 3, starting with the Thursday night game of the Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns on Thursday Night Football, and our first split. I have the Browns in this one, and Callan has the Steelers.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are going to win here because the Browns are going to be without Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. Now, Clowney's already been ruled out, and Garrett had a neck injury in practice today, so he's now questionable. And that's your two main pass rushers being lost there, and that's going to be huge for Pittsburgh, and I think they're going to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I saw that Myles Garrett was questionable, but I did not know that Jadeveon Clowney is already out. Luckily, they actually have some pretty decent depth at that DN position, so if Clowney is out and Garrett can play, or just some sort of solution there, then I think they'll be okay. But yeah, if both of those guys are out, Clowney and Garrett, with the defense that relies on pass rush, that pretty much is the entirety of the defense.
That is the pass rush there.
So that's a lot right there. But nevertheless, if you saw the Steelers' defense last week, their offense last week, it was not hot. So I think we're going to see a very low-scoring game, but a low-scoring game that the Browns will come out on top in. I mostly just picked them because they're the home team. It was a really close matchup here.
It was a tough decision.
So I just went home field advantage on this one.
Pittsburgh's already had 1 week to adjust without their top pass rusher. Now Cleveland's going to have to learn to adjust for this week without their top two.
Certainly. So moving on, our next game, we have the Kansas City Chiefs heading into Indianapolis, a little bit of a tongue twister there, to take on the Colts. And Cal and I both have the Colts in this one, and he actually has his marked as the upset. Which, don't get me wrong, the Chiefs are a very good team, but it's crazy that I thought the Colts were going to win the AFC South handily, and now we're looking at them as an upset in only Week 3. It's just crazy to me after that 0-1-1 start, after tying with the Texans and losing to the Jaguars 24-0 in a shutout. But I think that they're still going to pick up a win here because why not? That's pretty much what, after doing this for a whole year last year and the first 3 weeks this year, it is so unpredictable in the NFL, and the Colts are still, at the end of the day, a good team and have a solid roster on paper. So I see them really getting back to their core with Jonathan Taylor. I think we're going to see a lot of run game and a huge game from him. But we'll see if the Chiefs' defense can handle it. I don't think they will be able to.
No, I don't think so either. I think the Colts are going to be mad after being shut out in Jacksonville. They can't win in Jacksonville, but they sure are good at home. And that's the key there, is that Kansas City's coming into Lucas Oil Stadium, where they got a team going into a dome. That's just hard for them to adjust, and the Colts have just always had the Chiefs' number for whatever reason, going back to many playoff matchups.
The Andrew Luck fumble that he got on the goal line and brought it in, one of the craziest plays ever. But we both have the Colts in that one. And now we are moving on to quickly talk about the Buffalo Bills heading to Miami to take on the Dolphins. And Cal and I again agree and both have the Bills. Now, I'm just going to say this pretty much as my reasoning for the Bills every week. I don't care what Tua did last week. I don't care what the Dolphins did this week. The Bills are just that good. They are a dominant team. I think they pick up a divisional win here.
Yeah, the Bills are probably the most well-rounded team all around in the NFL right now. And they've just been dominating. They dominated the Rams and really dominated the Titans. And even though Tua threw 6 touchdowns last week, he's going to need to do that again this week if they have any chance to defeat the Bills.
Yeah, Tua's not going to get the free bombs that he's able to get against Baltimore last week. So we'll see if he can really step up and be a true passer for that team. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And again, very common theme throughout these entire pick'em this week. Cal and I agree we both have the Vikings. Now, as I kind of touched on in our last episode, just that came out yesterday, I don't think the Vikings played near as bad as they looked against Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia just stepped up to the plate and played really well. So even after Detroit came off of a pretty big win against Washington, I think that Minnesota is going to right the ship, and I could see this being a relatively close game. I really could. I think Detroit is a much improved team, and we struggled against them last year. So what is it going to look like now that they're much improved? But at the end of the day, we're at home. I think we have a better roster. Look for a huge game from Justin Jefferson and a win.
Yeah, the Vikings are just a different team at home. That whole atmosphere, it really feeds into their momentum. And I think that that's going to be a huge difference maker, that home field advantage for the Vikings.
Skol. Skol. Love the Skol chant. That's one of my favorite things.
You know, the first year they did the Skol chant, I was at that game because it was a Packers-Vikings opening game. And they were so out of sync. You're supposed to, they do the drum and then the Skol.
Boom, boom, bah,
yeah, they were going Skol, Skol. Like they were just completely out of sync. So,
you know,
I'm proud that they were able to, get it under control, and they're much more in sync now.
Us Vikings fans, we're still learning. We've seen a little bit to catch up.
But it was really funny that first year, just how inconsistent it was for a chant. They did not get it at all.
Inconsistency is the curse of Minnesota. That does not surprise me at all. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens heading to New England to take on the Patriots, and again agree. And I have the Ravens marked as my lock. Callan also picked the Ravens. Pretty simple one here for me is I just still don't trust New England. I mean, they only put up 17 points against a pretty stellar Steelers defense, but they also allowed 17 points to a near non-existent Steelers offense and barely picked up a win in that game that, if I'm not mistaken, was in New England even. So very rough overall last week, even for picking up a win. And the Ravens totally got embarrassed with that 21-point fourth quarter comeback. So they are going to be coming in with a vengeance, and I see some domination in this one.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are going to be a little angry after last week, and they're going to take it out on the Patriots. The Mac Jones, he has some back spasms. He got a little bit of a back injury, so I think that's going to be key to see how healthy he is through the week and through that game. But I definitely see that the Ravens should come out on top in this one.
Yep, so moving on, next up we have the Bengals heading to New York to take on the Jets, and we finally disagree again. Callan has the Bengals in this one, and I have the Jets marked as my upset. Now, I didn't think I would be picking the Jets at any point with Joe Flacco at the helm, but I must say, they really impressed me what they were able to do against the Browns last week. Yes, was it a fluke? Maybe. You could easily make an argument for that either way, fluke or not. But I think that the Bengals are a really struggling team right now who, after going to a Super Bowl, is having a strong Super Bowl hangover and almost re-finding themselves on it as a team, just as they had to do at the beginning of last year, which is weird to say for a team that just made it to the Super Bowl. But I could see the Jets coming in and sneaking out a win in New York in this one.
That Joe Flacco-Garrett Wilson connection seems to be dangerous. So
something about it does seem to be.
I could see where the Jets would win this, but this is almost feels like a must-win for the Bengals. I mean, you got a young Jets team coming in. They beat you last year after a big win for Cincinnati. I mean, this is kind of the opposite now this year. The Jets are having a big win. The Bengals needing to win, and then I think that Cincinnati will just be able to beat those young Jets.
Could definitely see it, but like you said, it is crazy. I'm excited to see what this team can do with Zach Wilson. If they're able to play like this with Joe Flacco, who knows? The future may be.
This could be one of those sneaky games of the week, just like the Jets game last week.
Future might be as bright as it seems for the New York Jets. So next up, we have a quick look at the Philadelphia Eagles going to Washington to take on the Commanders. Cal and I both have the Eagles in this one, and he has his marked as his lock.
Yeah, the way that the Eagles played on Monday night, if they can replicate any of that, they should be able to beat the Commanders pretty easily. And especially with Carson Wentz at quarterback, they know all his weaknesses, and I believe they will exploit that and be able to pick up an easy W against the W's.
Carson Wentz revenge game. Ooh, making me a little less confident in my pick. No, I'm just kidding. very few nerves going into my pick here with the Eagles. Like I said, after getting to get an in-depth look at them when they went against Minnesota last week, this is a really good roster and a really good coached team, which not even quite coach team, I should say, but called team, play calling wise, on both the offensive and defensive side. So I see them handily taking care of the Washington Commanders. Next up, we have the Falcons heading to Seattle to take on the Seahawks in what seems to be like a garbage bowl game, but it should be quite entertaining, and Cal and I have a split here with me taking the Falcons and him taking the Seahawks.
Yeah, the Seahawks, just like the Vikings, are a different team at home, and obviously they went into Denver, or not Denver, they didn't go into Denver, they went into San Francisco and got beat up pretty badly, but them returning home to face a Falcons team that almost came back against the Rams, but wasn't quite able to pull it off. They have a lot of momentum going, but I think that the Seahawks and Geno Smith will be able to ride their home momentum and be able to beat the Falcons.
Top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Kirk Cousins right up there at number 1. Number 2, Davis Mills, the long neck man. Number 3, Marcus Mariota. I think that the Falcons are going to be able to go into Seattle and put the 12th man silent. I think they pick up a win here. They have had 2 extremely close games. 2 games that they were winning or easily could have won at some point and just watched it slip through their fingers. So they want a win, and they're going up against a beat-up Seahawks roster. It's tough to beat Seattle at home, but I think the Falcons find a way to get it done. So next up, we have our game of the week, which is the Packers heading to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And again, we agree. We both have the Packers in this one. The Bucs will not have Mike Evans. He will be suspended for this game after the fight last week with Marshawn Lattimore. And overall, with or without Mike Evans, I do think the Packers are the overall better team. They finally got their offense rolling a little bit last week against the Bears, and the Bucs looked very poor against the Saints last week. So I think the Packers win here.
Yeah, up until that big fight, which got Mike Evans suspended, the Buccaneers were actually losing for most of that game. But I think if the Packers can again get that running game going, even though Tampa has a really tough run defense, Akeem Hicks is most likely going to be missing this game also, which is a key thing because he's their big run stopper, and they don't have Ndamukong Suh anymore, which always terrorized the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. But I also see this as being a big game for Aaron Rodgers because of that tough run defense. In case the run game doesn't get going, it'll be on Rodgers' shoulders to be able to get us downfield and get those young receivers involved, and finally maybe Watson will get his touchdown.
A Watson deep ball touchdown? Is that what we're calling here?
That's what I'm calling for here.
If he can catch it.
If he can catch it. Just got to close that basket.
Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers going to Denver to take on the Broncos in Sunday Night Football, and another split. I have the Broncos in this one. Callan has the 49ers. And Russell Wilson has started rough, to say the least. He has not looked comfortable in that offense yet. He just looks like he should have gotten some preseason reps. I am a strong believer in that, but it didn't happen, so we got to keep the past in the past. Hindsight is 20/20. I think he finally starts rolling a little bit because the arm talent is non-arguably still there. He made some throws these first 2 weeks that were insane to see, but he just looks like he's still trying to get comfortable. He built a great connection with Cortland Sutton last week, who had a pretty big game, and I think that connection will continue. And with the 49ers still switching from one quarterback to another, going back to Jimmy Garoppolo now, I think they're going to be in a little bit of a weird situation with him being his first full week as a starter, and I think that they are able to pick up a win.
I think it'll just be same old. They'll be right back into the thick of things with Jimmy G. And I believe that the way that the Broncos have been playing, that going into San Francisco, it's in Denver. It's in Denver, but still, San Francisco going into Denver, that's a tough defensive line to go against. And Russell Wilson has been having a lot of troubles this season so far. And Nathaniel Hackett kind of looks like he's in over his head a little bit. I mean, you got to think, what did he do in Green Bay? I mean, he was the offensive coordinator, but LaFleur and Rodgers kind of ran that offense, and you could tell that the Hackett just doesn't have that head coaching experience yet, and he's still learning on the fly, while Russ is just trying to kind of get everyone fired up. And I've heard that some teammates have called him annoyingly firing people up, like the whole "let's go, let's ride" thing that
Broncos country. Yeah, let's ride.
Apparently, he uses that a lot on the sidelines, and it's not getting too many teammates very well. So this could be a long season in Denver.
That's hilarious. This is going to be an interesting game to watch because it's two teams that could totally boom or totally bust.
Mm-hmm.
Both boom, both bust. We have no idea how this game is going to go. But we'll finish up here quick with the Monday Night Football game of the Dallas Cowboys heading to New York to take on the hot New York Giants in a game that Cal and I agree again and both have the Giants in. Now I expect to see a total return to form from Week 1 form, 2019 form for Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Huge Week 1, a little bit of a quiet Week 2. I think they'll really get him involved again, Brian Daboll and the rest of that offense. And the Cowboys, I really like Cooper Rush. I think he's better than most people give him credit for. But he's still just not a viable starting NFL quarterback.
He's a backup quarterback.
So I see the Giants picking up their third win of the season.
Yeah, the Giants are on a roll right now, and they got the momentum going. They got a whole different attitude. I just think that there's going to be too much for the Cowboys, even with that big win that they had over Cincinnati. I think that Cooper Rush is just what he is. He's a backup quarterback, and that will start to show at some point, especially against a division rival.
Yep. So those are our predictions for Week 3. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video. And until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.